Sheriff, we got a lot to talk about.
Can you hear the piano at all?
Yeah, I hear.
Damn, that's even with the musician thing off. Okay, let me try this real quick. Alright, I'm gonna move the camera out a little.
Guys, I'm filming you, filming me. Getting ready for the podcast.
And your goddamn cameras are there.
That's right, there you go.
You are ready for what I'm bringing to the table.
Oh, I just got a last minute bit together. Matt knows what it is.
Heard?
And you will soon find out.
I'm excited.
Yes, I have multiple things because I'm not letting you and Matt swallow me up this episode. I'm prepared.
Heard? Oh, let me try to record first before I get this ready.
I think so, but I turned my settings on to where you guys can just record.
I have to say,
Hey, fast. My brother had a great line. I was telling him that I was starting to get nervous about the bits on a regular basis, trying to come up with ones and always stressing to find out what a good one's going to be. He says, don't let the bits go too far because before you know it, you're all trying to outdo each other. And before you know it, Sam's robbing a bank and trying to, have a good bit. So that made me bust up laughing. So I had to share that.
That would be the funniest shit ever. It's like Sam's just sitting there on his phone doing the whole episode as he's robbing a bank.
Yeah, and then just after that, it's like, okay, we need to have a group discussion about how far things have gone with the bits on this podcast. Sam is facing,
Well, Sam's the only, at that point, Sam would be the one really bringing in the bucks. He'd be bringing in the real money.
He would be recording from jail from that day on.
Yep.
This might go terribly wrong.
Sheriff, we got a lot to talk about.
I am not an animal!
Damn, I'm thirsty. I want a beer. What about you? You want a beer?
The ice is gonna break! I am not a human being! I am an animal!
And I'm sorry you can't do this. I really am, because I wouldn't have to fucking sit here and watch you fumble around and fuck it up.
I am Shiva, the god of death.
Shut up and sit down, you big bald fuck.
You gonna eat your cornbread.
But for me, it was Tuesday.
And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
Thank you for that introduction. Welcome to the first interview with the immaculate Samuel Holler for the making of 3 for 3. You guys have been doing the podcast since about August. And one question.
Been that long. That's wild.
Yep. You guys are at 32, I think, episodes. And that's like 32 weeks, pretty much straight of recording. Yeah. Going all the way back. What attracted you to doing this version of the podcast?
I just moved from North Carolina all the way to Colorado.
right when they had asked me back in August. And that was just a big jarring moment in my life. And I really was doing nothing because where I was at was a town called Westcliff, and there was nothing there really to do. This helped give me something to focus my mind on, and it was just nice to look forward to every Tuesday, seeing my friends and talk about what we watched.
Mainly to kind of connect with my friends that I hadn't been able to like be with for a minute. Matt moved away, and that was very frustrating because we would watch movies together all the time, and then I hadn't heard from Jackson hardly for the last like 3+ years.
I was watching a lot of movies last year. It was the first time in a while that I'd been watching that many movies all at once. And every time I saw one, I said, damn, if I still was doing that podcast, I would have a lot to say about this. I just wanted to talk so much about all of them. So I thought to myself, man, I should talk to Matt and Sam and try to restart this thing. And so that's what I did. I reached out and they said, okay, that sounds fun. And we changed the format quite a bit from what it used to be to make it better, more fine-tuned, and just it seemed like a fun idea, so we just ran with it.
What influences your picks for each week?
Well, initially I go with the most fucked up movie I could possibly find, and then I kind of take it back a few notches, and then I kind of divert. Usually, if we have a special, something comes into my brain immediately. And then when we had started getting into the later parts of season one, I planned out a bunch of movies that I wanted to have on the cast, but then most of them ended up getting taken off streaming. So then it kind of made it a lot easier to just choose some of the extra ones that were on it.
Um, I would say it's either a movie that I've been wanting to see for a bit, or if there's like a specific movie we kind of touch on in a previous podcast that I found out Jackson or Sam hadn't seen. I kind of want to pick those just to continue the conversation a little bit, which would explain some of the choices like Grilled and Spoils of Babylon.
Usually I don't try to think about it too hard. It's just whatever. There's always more movies that I want to see. I usually try to pick ones I haven't seen. And, the first thing that'll come to mind, after we finished an episode and I think, oh, that would be a good one to see or a good one to talk about. Yeah, that's usually what I pick. Sometimes I've picked movies like Son of a Woman and Chimes at Midnight that I've seen before, that, I want to watch again or Matt and Sam haven't seen. And I want them to see it so I can talk about it with them. So yeah, that's generally how that goes.
How do you prepare for each podcast? What's your setup look like?
Well, as you can see here, this vicinity of the world, I put myself in that space in my mind. I don't go there. I'm not from there. I'm in North Carolina. But crack open a nice cold beer, usually from Odin Brewing Company. Shout out to them. Almost always have one of their beers on the cast, and I put my laptop on top of 2 complete scores of the Everything Everywhere All at Once score. I have that, and then the Minari score stacked on top of each other. Anytime I want to like pull out a piece from each of those so that I want to like get influenced, and I have my Scarlet to the side and a couple instruments to the other side of me in case I need to grab anything, and right in the room where all my movies are. And that's what I wanted to be surrounded by when I was on the cast.
Now I'm literally just setting it on the armrest of a little sofa, and I pop out a little plastic bench and put a blanket over that so my ass doesn't hurt, and just so I can get a decent shot of some stuff behind me, so it's not just what it was in Westcliff, which was nothing. So right before the podcast, I tend to meditate a little bit. I will sit in my room with the lights off, complete silence. And occasionally I will watch all 3 movies on double the speed at the same time, just so I don't forget anything and just have a fresh brain for the podcast. But I don't always get that luxury.
I always put my laptop on a box on top of a suitcase, and I just pull that out of the closet and just put my laptop right on top of it and just pray to God we don't have too many crashes when we start recording.
That fucker can freeze a mile a minute. And I will be talking and I'll be getting all these good jokes out and I'll be getting everything off my chest. And then I realize he's been frozen for the last 5 minutes and I need to re-say everything.
Every session we crash. Fortunately, we're all recording now. But before, Sam and I would just kind of be in a limbo state. However, the upside to that was always seeing Jackson's face frozen. That never ceases to be funny to me.
Some of you folks who are excited for where the season 3 intro might take some of our stuff. And I just want to thank y'all for listening to the music that I have put out in this podcast. Take it away, good folk. Even though I fucked up that intro completely at the end. My legs were shaking and it started shaking the whole piano and then I was like, oh God. But we'll get the proper audio in that somewhere.
Yes, that the quotes were a little hard to hear, but the music sounded fantastic. So
okay.
We'll splice the quotes in. That sounded great. Well done, Sam.
Thank you. So why are we here?
The French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul Masson, inspired by that same French excellence. It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best wine, it's vintage dated. 'Cause Paul Masson will sell no wine before it's time. And we, on this podcast, will never discuss a movie unless, like Hunter S. Thompson, it's really groovy.
Amen to that.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 3 for 3 podcast yet again. With this episode is going to be all kinds of crazy today. We got all kinds of things going on. The bits, the meta-ness of it all. Sam performing a live intro for you all. It's all just going to be top-notch and wonderful and different and exciting. And I just drove. I was 20 minutes late getting here because I just drove to the ABC store with my brother and bought this Paul Masson. Specifically because I wanted to I had this idea at the last minute. Didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but here we are.
Get a taste test?
Now you're going to chug.
Yeah, we're going to find out what it tastes
Let's go. My name is Jackson Workman. I am joined by my two co-hosts, Mr. Samuel Holler and Mr. Raul Duke, who has come all the way from Las Vegas, taking a break from the Fear and Loathing to grace us with his presence today. How are you today, Mr. Duke?
I'm doing fine. I'm feeling like a goddamn patriot, and I took some acid earlier, and it's starting to kick in. Hopefully, I will update you guys later on that one. But things may start to deteriorate.
I would expect no less for this one. Yes, today is a very special episode. Today's going to be a very different kind of episode in many ways. Mr. Duke is already seeing bats attacking him. But yes, this is the documentary special. Normally, we just cover feature films on this podcast, but today we're covering 3 different documentaries, and that's going to be interesting for sure. So, I think to start, we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Paterson's pick, or Mr. Duke's pick, rather, which is Gonzo, the life and work of Dr. Hunter S. Thompson. Take it away, Mr. Duke.
Yes, well, this was a very accurate documentary about my life. As you can see, well, it looks like Mr. Holler is disappeared, but I cannot tell if that's hallucinations beginning to take hold or if that's just him.
Where is he gone, do you think, Mr. Duke? Well, are you saying that are the drugs
He probably went to get a gun.
Oh, most likely.
He's going to kill somebody.
He's going to shoot maybe even himself, perhaps.
Costume change, yeah.
There you go.
My wrinkly shirt.
Mr. Duke, are the drugs starting to kick in?
I can feel them getting higher. Now Jackson's gone. What the fuck?
The hallucinations are really starting to kick in.
Are they real? I need a beer and maybe a gun.
Oh
my god damn it! There's a fucking reptile zoo in here. And somebody's giving Paul Masson to these things. Jesus Christ. My god.
How you gotta be.
Jesus. Somebody call him Rango.
Anyway.
Oh. Jackson, you still have your mask on.
No, this isn't a mask. This is my real face.
The drugs are taking over.
No, this is my mask, guys. That was my real face.
Jackson is a true lizard person.
I'm a true lizard person. Just didn't I ever tell you guys?
Somebody put him in office now. God damn.
Anyways,
so if anybody wanted to know, if any of you fuckers out there have seen the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by that crackpot Terry Gilliam, just know my life is 10 times fucking crazier than that movie. That movie is just a glimpse into the life of Hunter S. Thompson, a doctor of journalism, might I add. Yes, this documentary directed by Alex Gibney, who did a fantastic job, and also narrated by Johnny Depp, who is the only person who seems to know how to play me these days. And the only person that probably wants to at this point, to be honest. However, we go back deep into my life. Way back, or we don't really go, I don't know. Whew, sorry, I got the post-acid jitters. If you wanted to know what really makes Hunter S. Thompson, you have to go back to the Hells Angels. Picture this. You're a young journalist. You don't know what the fuck you're doing, really. There's a biker gang terrorizing the fucking shit out of everyone. What do? Join them. You join them, and you write about them. And guess what? It's actually not a bad time. Up until they beat the fucking shit out of you. But hey, when you're with the Hells Angels, do not stop them from beating their wife and their dog to a bloody pulp on the rocks. Or you too will get it, as I learned. But yes, this documentary explores my early life, and well, my whole life, but also the early life of how I became this gonzo journalist. The wife and kid I had, and the very normal life I started out with, up until we get to the Kentucky Derby, where I meet Ralph Steadman. And him and I go on a journey. And we take mescaline, and we stare at all the audience members. And that day is born gonzo journalism. We did not write about the race at all. That had nothing to do with it. All that had to do was the animals that we really came to see. And then everyone fucking loved it. All of a sudden, Rolling Stone was calling me. I was getting all these calls about how great it was. And I realized, goddamn, if you can write like this and get away with it, I must do this for the rest of my life. And by God, I did. I went on to write Four Quarters Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But what people don't talk about is my run for sheriff, where I tried to run for the office of sheriff for the town of Aspen, which I lived. And that did not go great. But, by Jove, that's where I lost my hair. Never grew back after that. I shaved that shit for a bit. Jackson, your brother was telling us how the bit could go too far. The bit went way too far on that one. I shaved my head. I wore wigs. God damn it. Only half of it grew back. Was it worth it? I do not know. But nonetheless, I became a sexy outlaw journalist who started doing drugs at the height of his fame. Because when you're doing drugs and you're writing, people tell you, this is the most amazing shit ever. You're going to keep doing drugs and writing. You're not going to stop. And then they're just going to send you on random assignments in which they're pretty sure you're not going to come back with what they ask you to do. But that's why they ask you to do it. And that is the life of Hunter S. Thompson, who, of course, took his life back in 2005. And I took my own life, actually. And I got to say, I pissed a lot of people off. But getting shot out of that fucking cannon was the greatest shit ever. And nobody will be able to feel it, because I truly went over the edge.
You certainly pissed Ed Muskie off, I know that.
Well, fuck him. Nobody gives a shit about Muskie.
Do you have a name for this? Do you have a name for the style of writing that you live through? The truth?
The gonzo. The gonzo.
I'm trying to do
the double
yeah.
thumb.
Yeah, because nobody's got two
thumbs.
We're getting close with that one.
There you go. That looks pretty good.
That was, yeah. It was more like a monkey paw, but
there you go.
Anyways, so, gentlemen, how did you feel about this documentary, a foray into my life? Sam, I know you knew more, and you've definitely seen this. Jackson, however, does not, and I'm curious to hear that. But, however, which one of you want to go first? Go first.
Sam?
Well, I must say, Jimmy motherfucking Carter, the GOAT, the light of my life, made this documentary so exciting at parts. I gotta watch what I say carefully because
Jimmy Carter? Wait, Jimmy Carter?
Yes, he was the way he talked in this documentary was wonderful, and I need to watch my words carefully because goddamn Nixon, the animal, the beast,
the fucking
jokester,
monster,
did not deserve shit. And I will stop it there because I could go a lot further and then end up on a watch list. But this movie, like all three of these documentaries tonight, made me really sad. Just watching this made me so excited for people's experiences and to know like where some of these people left off conversations that never got finished and where his son saying he was never around, but when he was around, he was there. That's all he could say. Is fucked. And I love this movie. It has a style to it that just umps what you're watching. And even though we'll get into some of the narration issues with future stuff, I think Johnny Depp reading some of the actual quotes and books that he was reading really added a huge impact to believing the narration was just Hunter. And that's where I really sucked myself in. And you want the best for him, but nothing after 9/11 was ever going to save that man. And it just is the way it is.
If only I could have seen what happened today, I would have definitely fucking shot myself then. But maybe it would be a homicide-suicide, who knows?
God damn. Raul, not Raul.
Exterminate all the brutes. Okay, I'm not talking about the Hell Angel this time.
Good lord. I'm trying to remember his name all of a sudden, because I just used to call him Gonzo, but his writing...
Oscar Acosta.
Oscar Acosta. I love that dude. And that part when they were all like, he was fighting the politics and Hunter was fighting the way we write words and express things to people, was amazing. And I loved the part where they were like, if I had a boat, I'd go out in the ocean. But that should have been the first sign that we were going to get the call that he was dead. And then it just cuts to him whipping on that goddamn speedboat going crazy. And I'm like, okay.
Lonely Island style.
Yeah. Also, George Stranahan, one of the dudes they interviewed was a Stephen King lookalike. And that I just cracked up every time I saw that old man.
I can see who you're talking about. But yes, no, my famed lawyer, Oscar Acosta, was a very big name in the Chicano power movement, especially in the act of getting Latino kids out of jail for misdemeanors like weed and drugs, because they were obviously being tried harshly, and he was there to fix that. And so, shout out to him as well. He deserves. He actually does have.
He also had this fun little hobby where he liked to drop a fucking toaster in the bathtub whenever he was in it.
Okay, he was on a drug-induced trip. He had eaten an entire sheet of bladder acid. And man, when you eat an entire sheet of bladder acid and you listen to White Rabbit while eating a grapefruit, goddamn, all you want is to die after that, because nothing will come as close to listening to White Rabbit on an entire sheet of bladder acid.
I'll have to take your word for it, Mr. Duke. Yeah, so this was an interesting one for me for sure. I really think I was talking to Sam about this earlier. I think he said, and I agree, that in a way this is almost kind of a second childhood special, because I like how one of the most fun things for me about watching these three picks was each one was very personal to us in a way about what the subject matter was. And so that was a lot of fun, because the first time I ever heard of Hunter S. Thompson was from, well, not you, Mr. Duke, but from Matt, who's normally here with us.
Crazy bastard.
Yeah. He, for as long as I've known him, he's been a huge Thompson fan. The first time I ever heard of him was when you mentioned him to me. And yeah, so watching that with that context, and learning more about him and how you relate to him, that was fun. But also it was fun because I liked learning more about, I know who he was, I know about his lifestyle and all that, but there were a lot of things about him running for sheriff and all kinds of other things like that I didn't know a lot about, or exactly what about the Hells Angels stuff. I didn't know about that. So I may have heard of it once, but didn't really read about it. So learning more about that was interesting. And all kinds of other stuff, his political activities, all that kind of stuff. Hunter S. Thompson, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this, because to me, I've never really liked him much. To me, he was always and he's one of the main examples I use of just kind of writers who are just kind of belligerent dicks, and just if anyone else was in that profession, they wouldn't be able to get away with it. However, while I was watching it, I was like, I can at least, respect that, he was, I see why people admire him. And also, it's funny because we'll get into this later when I talk about my movie, I was prepared to, kind of come on and talk a little bit more about how I had never really liked him before. But it was, I don't know. In a way, I think like this episode was kind of healing because, or like not healing, but what's the word I'm looking for? Illuminating, enlightening, because the subject of my pick also is someone who, like you and I both picked documentaries about a subject who we both admire greatly, but who was also a very troubled, flawed individual, who didn't always do the most sensible things. And when I was watching mine, I was like, okay, so I can't sit there with a straight face and shit all over, the person in Matt's documentary because I can have my reasons about why I like my guy and why I don't like his, but then Matt can sit there and do the same thing. So I was like, some people, even if they're flawed, even if it's someone who I don't necessarily like, I can see why like you or somebody else might, and it was very enlightening in that sense. I was like, because I never really got it before. I was always just kind of like, I don't get why people are so into Hunter S. Thompson, but this definitely illuminated me. I was like, I get it now. I really do. And again, like, he's a hell of a character. He's a fascinating guy to like watch and learn about and like find out what he was up to and all that good stuff. Like learning about him running for sheriff, learning about like, honestly, the most fascinating part of the documentary to me was the later part where it was talking about him campaigning for George McGovern and him going after Nixon and Ed Muskie and like how he factored into the turbulent political era of the 60s and 70s. I thought that was very fascinating. And I thought that was the most revealing part of the documentary. And I generally just had a really fun time with it. Just, just learning more about him and learning more about like, his earlier life and all kinds of stuff. They didn't focus as much on his personal life as they did on his career, but it was still like fascinating learning about all of it. Because one thing you can't say about Hunter S. Thompson is that he was boring. Like, following any part of that guy's life, it's going to be entertaining to listen to and to find out.
I couldn't live with peace. Peace is not okay. Like, I have to be chaotic. Life is always chaotic. Something has to be going on.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you did, Mr. Thompson. You were an interesting guy who was always up to something.
Thank you. And I'm actually going to stop doing this real quick because I do have to talk about how much I love him, and I do not want to do that just being like, I know it was so great, because you can't really, that just sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, like you were saying, I do love Hunter S. Thompson. As you can see, I've got the fucking shrine behind me of half of his
there
books.
we go.
And then I've got his other books next to me.
Do you have the book that he wrote like towards the end? The I just forgot the name. Ergo or something of Lost Soul. I can't think of it all of a sudden. They showed the cover and Ralph Steadman talked about
Curse of Lono?
Yes. Curse of Lono.
Yeah, actually, I didn't bring that out, but I do have that. It's over there. Yes.
I'm very interested in
That's the hard one to find.
Yeah.
Screwjack also is the one they didn't talk about at all. That's fucking hilarious. Like, again, when I was texting you guys this in the group chat, Homeboy to me was Bitlord. Like, he legit knew what he was doing 99% of the time. Maybe there's times where he was just fucked up, but like in the beginning especially, like he knew what he was doing. And he knew that shit was funny. Like when he was like telling people Muskie was on Ibogaine, and he was there, I was like, yeah, you made up that drug. And he goes, yep, I sure fucking did. And I just went, like, what? Like,
yeah, because he says, like, well, I didn't say he was on it. I said there was a rumor he was on it, and the rumor was started by me.
He said the rumor was started in Milwaukee, which is, and he said, so I guess you could say I'm a pretty accurate journalist. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And also, like, the whole when he did shave his head, and he said the only reason he did that was so he could say, unlike my long-haired opponent, Kenneth Whitmire or whatever. And that dude has the shortest fucking hair ever. So you have to shave. Like, I was like, okay, that's
the dude screaming into the radio station. And then once he finishes, they're all like clapping and like, we did it.
Yep. And like, that's the thing too, is I think some people probably saw Fear and Loathing. And if they even thought it was a real dude, they're like, this dude must be out of his mind and not like there whatsoever. You can see he's very much there. Like,
he'll be laughing at shit, like, you know, which is my favorite part is actually seeing him laugh because I don't feel like he laughs a lot. Like, you don't see that a lot. So when they cut to him and he's just smiling and having a good time, you're like, hell yeah, this is why people liked him. And like you said, Jackson, he's kind of a belligerent dick and gets away with it, but like because of what he's doing being so important, it's how he gets away with it, I guess. Because like that one dude was like, he broke up my marriage, taught my kids to smoke dope, and did one other thing, but I still like respected him or something like that. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like how much of a
where I looked, he was a dick, but then like they had the Hells Angels biker on there being like defending the bikers, and he was like, well, everything you did confirmed what I said, so like, and
he never backed down from it either. He never like was like being timid. He was just sitting there telling this Hells Angels to his face on TV, like, fuck you, dude. No.
Even the Hells Angel that they were interviewing in the documentary kind of begrudgingly respected him still, because he's just like, you know, he's like, hey, look, he's a great fucking writer, you know, but what he said was total bullshit or whatever.
And it's because the person saying that, I'm like, I don't believe a fucking word you say. No offense, my guy, Sonny Barger. I don't like, I think you're probably 10 times worse than he ever was. And so
if you remember the Hells Angels, you're not a good person, probably. So
exactly. So automatically he's got a moral high ground. But I don't know, really the 9/11 thing was what got me, because when I first saw this, I knew he died in 2005, but I did not know he wrote about 9/11. And the fact that he wrote it that day and then basically said that everything that exactly happened in the next 5 years to 10 years is nuts to me, that in one day he sat down, was like, yep, I see exactly what's going to happen. Wrote about it, and that is exactly what happened.
Crazy.
Well, he had experience
with Nixon and Bush, and then they showed the image where they both like interlapped over each other, and how history repeated himself. And he called it out back then, and he called it out when it happened, and nothing changed, and it's happening again. And if he were here, he would call it out again.
100%, which is why a lot of people were upset that he died, because they wanted, you know, Hunter S. Thompson to be here to talk about this shit, especially an older one.
Talk about the iPhone.
How old would he?
His brains out of.
Oh, he would have been dead already. He would have at least gotten through Obama and maybe died peacefully. Maybe.
I was about to say, how old would he be now if he was still alive? He'd be pretty old.
That's a good question. He was pretty old.
In his 80s, at least.
Yeah, he could still be around, but it's highly unlikely if he didn't shoot himself, which was fucked up. And you can tell his son is like mentally like fucked up, because the way he was talking about the whole death, his son had no emotion.
and the wife's
gonna happen, and that's what's so fucked, is that he did it with them there, and like, how could you put people through that? Like, someone's gonna have to find your body. Yes.
Well, that's my see again. Like, that's my thing. Like, that is one of many things to me why I never really liked him, is because of shit like that. I'm like, that's indefensible. That's just what kind of a person would kill himself with his family in the next room, and just all kinds of stuff. And just, you know, I thought, frankly, at times that they were kind of, you know, toning down his antics, trying to make him look better. But, you know, and again, my thoughts on him haven't really changed necessarily. It's just like, I at least now respect why he has such a big fan base. Like, I get, you know, why, you know, so many people resonate with his writing, are like gravitate towards it and towards his personality and all of that. Like, and again, like, yeah, just stuff like that. It used to be, again, I was always kind of more just like, oh, this fucking guy. It's not even just him necessarily. I just can't stand the trend of, you know, writers who are just, you know, kind of belligerent, pretentious, sometimes outright monsters. It seems like most famous authors are terrible people, but because they're writers or, you know, these novelists, they get away with it for whatever reason, when anyone in any other profession wouldn't be able to. And, you know, that was always kind of like, he just represented that larger problem to me. But again, like, I do get, having watched this now, I'm like, I get it. Like, I get why so many people, you know, liked him. I get why so many people, his writing resonated with them. I get why, you know, he gave people, I think, you know, a way to feel like, you know, okay, there's somebody out there who sees that the system is corrupt the same way I do, because that was his whole thing was fuck the system. And anyone out there who feels that way, it's like that guy, he gets me, and just like I get that. He did that for people, and that's a good thing. So
and the way of his writing too was so different, like honestly, especially at the time, because now at that point, if you write like him, people just go, oh, that's Hunter S. Thompson or Gonzo style. Before that, there was no real like writing is visceral and is like also if you do read his shit, it's very like fucked. Like it's funny as hell.
When they like, had the parts where Ralph was listening to him like write and scream at the drug dealer, and then he just starts drawing and then does these intros, just stunning.
Ralph Steadman's so good. Yeah.
Low key, you're talking about him being the bit lord. I low key feel like he knew exactly what he was doing when he's in Africa to cover the Rumble in the Jungle, one of the most significant sporting events of the 20th century, and he's skipping it and he's sleeping out in this pool high off his ass on drugs. I'm like, low key, I feel like he may have known what he was doing.
Everyone was covering that. Like, he didn't need to be there.
Yep, he was. Yep, 100%.
And that's where I respect him completely for it. I was mad, but then I was like, no, this is the biggest event. Everyone's covering it. Whatever he says will not matter.
Good point.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, even in Fear and Loathing, I was listening. I'll break it down. I've been listening to this audiobook on CD, which is honestly the biggest. If you guys ever can find this, or it's on YouTube actually, if you ever want to listen to Fear and Loathing, this is the best way to do it. The cast in this is insane. It's fucking Harry Dean Stanton narrates it. Maury Chaykin, you guys know him. He plays Gonzo, and Jim Jarmusch plays fucking Raoul Duke.
That's sick.
And then you got
holy shit.
And then the side characters, you got Jimmy Buffett plays the cop. He produced this whole thing, obviously.
Shout out to Jimmy Buffett.
He was in the documentary. Great. I was so surprised that he was in the documentary. I love seeing him. That's my guy.
Wait for it. Joan Cusack plays Lucy. Buck Henry plays desk clerk. Laurie Metcalf plays like one of the taco truck people. And Dan Castanella plays a bunch of other people. So you're sitting there and you're like, why do I hear a Simpsons character? It's because it's him. And awesome. This is probably the best audiobook of it because they actually do put in like sound effects and shit. And it does show that he's like, this is not the same shit.
I'm mad because you pulled that out and it made me realize that the only DVD I have from the episode is my Gonzo DVD, and I put so much prep into like being here and doing the piano stuff. I forgot my copy of Gonzo at home. I
can't find it. I have Rum Diary and Gonzo somewhere in that closet, and I can only find fucking Where the Buffalo Roam. And my Criterion was already out.
Well, speaking of Rum Diary, to piggyback off of what you said, Sam, I thought Johnny Depp narrating it was a very good choice as well. I have to say that. I thought not only because he's low-key kind of played him before, but also just the fact that, I mean, he's a really good actor, and him narrating Hunter's words did make it seem more vivid and did make it like, when he was reading it, I felt, Hunter's spirit coming through those words, like for sure. Like,
that's
I think
something I love that, not to jump ahead, but this and then watching the other documentary, Pick Jackson this week, we got such close relationships between the artist and the person who is making their art happen. And I loved having Johnny Depp be like this because he was so close to him. And then like you get later with stuff with John Huston and also Gary from that. And I just love those two parallels together, just pushing forward on both fronts.
Well, and also in general, just having so many people, I was stunned that they actually got George McGovern to be interviewed in the documentary. That was like fucking crazy. And I was stunned they got him, the Rolling Stone guy. That was one of the most emotional parts at the end when he got choked up and he's like, what do I miss about him? Everything. I can't talk about it, I'm just like, God damn, like that. He really like meant.
I mean, he's like a nice guy. Like when you hear the like him talking to Ralph and he's like, hey Ralph, I got an assignment for you. We're either gonna get our asses kicked or kick ass. What is the true nature of evil? And then he just starts going off. But I'm like, yeah, if I got that call from somebody like regularly, like some crazy shit, like every couple months, I would miss them in my life because, you're not going to get that call to spice your life up.
Yeah, very true. And even
that's another tie-in where like later they were like, we got to film with Orson. You got a week to do this. And then people drove, they dropped everything and they went and did it because these people who are artists have such like flavor and like personality that with through whatever they do, even if it's this minuscule amount, and everyone wants to be a witness for it. And I love that aspect.
Well, again, I mean, if there's anyone you want to be riding shotgun with, I mean, if you're riding shotgun with Hunter S. Thompson, you're going to see some shit that you're not going to see anywhere else.
The funniest thing was Ralph saying, I never felt safer than when he was behind the wheel. And then they cut to a shot of them driving and he's just like freaking out. Like
he's like cursing at the guys driving on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought it was wild. They got
so much footage. Wait a second.
If I remember correctly, I mean, that one guy they were interviewing, the old dude, that was a Nixon aide, wasn't it?
Yes.
I mean, the fact that he was willing to appear and kind of say some nice things about him in the documentary, I'm like, even his enemies had a fondness for him in a way.
That's the crazy, yeah.
Yeah. I need to take this back a minute. It's already out in the open. Matt and I have done some stuff that Hunter, the stuff that good old Raul might be on right now.
Nope.
Never. So you're not feeling it?
I'm fucking with you.
You ain't feeling the drip?
No, I was just saying I've never done that before. I don't know what you're talking about.
Fair. Well, there was a time in my life back in like 2017, July 4th, 2017. Not to
I know exactly where we were that day, I think.
But I went from this house with someone to Matt's apartment before Matt even left because we were feeling it too strong, and we saw people on top of a roof, we saw this dude with a blue tongue, we saw all sorts of stuff. It was weird, and we needed to leave, and we needed to watch something that we can focus on. What did we pick? Gonzo, the life of Hunter, or the life and works of Hunter S. Thompson, and
Dr. Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter, yes.
I'm a goddamn doctor of journalism.
Yes. And that was the first time I had fully seen this movie in its entirety, and I just got sucked in. I was super about everything. It was the height of my like Hunter S. Thompson fan, Dr. Hunter S. Thompson fame. And man, the way some of this is edited, when you are like visually like losing your mind a little bit, it pieces you back together, but you understand who he is so much that you like feel gross about yourself because you're like, I would do that right now, but I shouldn't. But he did it. So now I feel like I'm living through him, and then it just fully like I truly fell in love with this documentary. Like I don't own very many documentaries. It is a joke in my household that I do not like documentaries, and so which the person who created our logo, Stuart, has many things to say about, but I will debunk that right now and say I love documentaries. It just takes a specific subject to fully let me like dive in, and like that's where like things like Grey Gardens and a later pick, Jackson's pick, and even my pick that I was not expecting, sucked in. And this was one of the first that I just dove into, and it was like this and Thin Blue Line, which is two horribly different subject matters, but also extremely similar subject matters. And I don't know, I had a special place in my heart for this. Rewatching it much more older, sober, with a different perspective, I loved it. I was not liking it at first, and then it had that moment where it just things started to like hit, and I really enjoyed this rewatch of this, and thank you for picking it.
Hell yeah,
Raul.
Yeah, I just would like to say real fast also, I'm very similar in that, and that's why this episode was very interesting for me, because I'm the exact same way. I only watch documentaries if it's a subject I'm actually like interested in. I don't go out of my way to just watch as many as possible. And so like this in particular, like I never would have seen this if you hadn't picked it for the show, but I'm glad I did, because it was very interesting learning more about him and his career. And, you know, he's just such a fascinating character. Say what you will. He is a very fascinating character, and just learning more about his career and about just like trying to get to the bottom of what made him tick, was interesting. And just, again, the main thing I really liked about it was, again, just like, I don't know, it almost felt like I got to see him through your eyes for the first time. Because since I've known you, which has been a long time, I mean, going all the way back to high school, you have been a fan of his. And, again, I've never understood like his appeal before, but seeing it through your eyes now, I'm like, okay, this helped me understand Matt's perspective a lot more. And so I kind of really liked it for that reason. Just like, yeah, it was very cool in that way.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I mean, this is one of the few times that I've seen it not like on anything, but the baseline amount of shit. So I was like, oh shit, I can kind of, not that I didn't follow it before. I've seen, this used to be background noise for me back in high school at some point. I would just put this on if I wanted to be inspired. So sometimes I didn't really want to watch Fear and Loathing or Bum Diary. I just was like, I want to see the real shit. So I like seeing actual footage of him, which is crazy how much footage they have of him is nuts. I think there's a lot more that we didn't see.
It really is. There are a lot of moments. There are a lot of moments like just him coming out of his house where I'm like, how did they get this? Like, this is pretty crazy.
There was one dude who was being interviewed and I was like, who are you? And then they showed a photo of him like going crazy at a party with him. And he was like, yeah, then I became a part of Hunter's crowd. Even though he couldn't write and we were preventing him from being able to work, we had such a good time. And then they show all that party footage.
I also just have to mention, I love the part where they're talking about the making of Fear and Loathing, and he's just yelling at Alex Cox over the phone. He's just like, "You want to fight, you goddamn bastard? I'll give you a fight. You're in the fight of your life right here." I'm just like,
I do have a question. Was Alex Cox the person who wanted to make the Oh, okay. Because for a second I had in my mind,
the one who got fired and replaced by Terry.
That could be Ralph Bakshi at first, because I was like, animated adult humor. Ralph Bakshi makes sense.
Yeah.
And the two Ralphs with the animation, and so I was like, word. And then I was like, nah, Ralph Bakshi probably was too.
Well, he would have done an animated sequence. The whole movie would have been animated if it was him.
Exactly.
Maybe they wanted Ralph Bakshi to do the
rotoscope to the Lord of the Rings movie. So.
Oh yes, yeah. But so one quick thing I wanted to tie this up to was, so I now live in Colorado. However, before I did not, and I visited here. And one day my mom and my aunt were like, hey, we're going to go to Aspen. And I was like, cool. I didn't realize how close Woody Creek is to Aspen, because basically they're the same thing, like basically the same town. And so halfway through, I see like Pitkin County, and I'm like, oh shit, I know where we're going. We do the whole thing, go to his bar, and the Woody Creek Tavern, and we get in there, we look around, it's not too busy, and I'm like, we're like, where should we sit? And I knew he kind of sat like in a corner area, but I didn't know where. And so I was like, oh, over there works. Went and sat right in the fucking corner. Waiter comes up and, asks our orders. And then, of course, he goes, are you Hunter S. Thompson fans? Because he clearly heard us talking about it. And I was like, yeah. And he just went, good, you're sitting where he sat. And just walked away. And I was like, damn. I guess this is like one of the two corner spots in this bar. So I guess this was his, because it's like, so it's right, if you walk in the door, it'd be like right there in the corner. And no, I just thought that was cool. And I tried going to Woody Creek Tavern, but, or not Woody Creek, I tried to go to the Owl Farm, but that's definitely closed off, and you have to like message her to get access, because his cabin is now kind of a quasi-museum.
That's cool. I would want to go to it.
But yeah, it's just weird being in his stomping grounds. And also in that bar, it's like Kevin Costner's photos up there and shit. So a lot of famous people went there too. And of course, Johnny Depp. But
do you have anything to say about the life and memory of him, Matt? Or Raul?
Oh, I can say this. Hunter S. Thompson was a good man. He was strong. He was a man of many sides. But not many people got to see the side of him that I saw. Tender lover. Caring father. Workaholic who never ceased to beat his typewriter, no matter how many drugs he was on. This man made a difference in our country, whether we like it or not. Drug fiend can do something with his life. He can be somebody, even if it's through words. And our nation never be the same without him. as evident in this documentary. So we say thank you, Hunter, for truly creating, not only creating me, but creating a new movement we can all stand behind in some way or another.
It was fitting.
Yes. Well, this isn't. We're gonna do Sam's next, but if
I need to change for my pick, so that's the big thing.
If we were gonna move into mine next, I would have a bit which would be relevant to mine, which would be.
Then just.
What is your biggest pet peeve about your co-hosts? You can either pick one or do both. For Sam, I would say it's probably that I'm pretty sure he's trying to outdrink me every episode, and it's not going to happen.
One, Matthew goddamn Paterson knows what he did all the way back in season 1, and he never owned up to it. He never admitted to it, and he will be taken down by the law and by the people when they find out what he did.
Oh, I'm definitely going to ask him that.
That will
You're
forever
gonna ask, for once and for all, put to rest to what he did.
what he did. I need to know that you will get him to admit this, because he is cheating and he is slipping past and he doesn't have the answers that we want. So he says.
Okay, what are the answers? Okay. There's some intrigue going on here. There's some behind the scenes drama that we clearly are not privy to, the audience.
Well, I tell you, Matt, because of the damn time zones, is always fucking late. That's one thing I can't stand. I mean,
he's always goddamn late to the Zoom calls because he can't fucking remember the time difference, even though he lived in North Carolina his whole goddamn life.
that son of a bitch doesn't know how to tell the difference between Eastern time and Central time. I mean, how fucking hard is it, for God's sakes? But, you won't tell him I said that, right?
They fucking said that? Those fucks. I know how to tell the fucking time difference. Okay? I'm only 2 hours ahead of them, all right? No. You're 2 hours behind. They're 2 hours ahead. Fuck.
For Mr. Workman, it simply is what he picks. And he will get that when it comes to, he will understand why his picks rub me the wrong way.
They rub you the wrong way. Is there a rubbing you the right way?
There has been quite a bit of good rubbing.
Sometimes I get a little nervous when things start going off the rails, that, I'm a little nervous that the episode might be going down a path that we can't recover from, but then I watch it back and I'm always like, oh, this is fucking gold.
I see you, Matthew. I see you, Jackson. So I was up in Maine, super far away from anything, and there was a piano in the place I was staying in that was over 100 years old, and I just started waking up and practicing and kind of getting back in the vibes of writing on the piano again. And there's 3 of us, and what is 3 in music for most times? A triplet. And so I wrote the triplet for each of us, and within that time melody there's only 3 notes as well, so it swings like a pendulum, with that going on at the same time. And so I was really into these 3s, and I wanted something energetic, and they sent me quotes that they kind of wanted to hear, because we had been always talking about using movie quotes for an intro theme, and it just kind of took off from there. And with season 2 I wanted something to go a lot slower, and then the more I wrote it, the quicker it kind of like pushed and pushed, and then I found it to connect with the first song in a way, and that's where the season 3 intro connects it even further, and the tissue grows, and you'll hear different things from each of the two within the third melody, and that's where we kind of evolved into. We used a little bit of quotes. We used a lot of quotes with this new season, and then by the third season, it's going to be hopefully quotes of us and things that we've said and things we can get away with saying in every intro.
It's actually gotten a lot more complicated than it used to be. It used to be, I just, you know, we would get done recording. I would just edit it all together. It wouldn't take me too terribly long, just a couple hours, and then I'd export it, upload it, all that good stuff. But since, season 2, it's become a much more sophisticated process where now we have to, send the audio out, get that tuned up. I have to wait for that to get sent back. We're all recording now, so I got to make sure I edit in, different angles and everything. And now I got to make sure when I get the audio back, it matches up with the video. I got to make sure it, isn't out of sync. So, and then I got to export it, upload it. The episodes are getting longer, so that takes longer. So it's a bit more of a process than it used to be. But generally, as long as I have all my stuff by Sunday, then, it all works out timing wise pretty well.
So Sam does the music and posts the TikToks. Jackson edits and posts the show to YouTube. What exactly do you do for the podcast?
I put it on Spotify.
And what else?
I host.
Don't they also host?
What are you fucking trying to say here, Steve? What are you trying to insinuate? Yes, they also host, but I host.
Noted.
Okay, this fucking guy.
Well, y'all, the first step for our next pick on this podcast is to first rosin your bow. And so that's what we're going to do on the podcast today. We're going to rosin our bows. Now,
the devil go down to Georgia?
What'd you say?
No, that's a fiddle, Matt, not the bass.
But he still's got to rosin up his bow.
Good point.
Many would say that the German bow is the method because it gives you that full strength within the index and the pinky.
Sam, I have a question. Is the bow in your hand afraid?
Yes, it is, because I'm about to lather it in some tree sap. This is the process in which we call rosining our bow. And what happens next? You get a sound from your instrument. Let me move this over and kind of turn this camera so you can get the full experience of this. And for some of y'all who are knowledgeable, that is the intro theme for Matt's short film, The Individuals, which we will credit within the bio.
Makes me want to rosin up my bow.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Right. All right.
And on that note, if you don't rosin your bow, you're gonna have dry like.
Sam,
that's what it sounds like when I'm drinking.
Sam, I have to say, you are usually the bit master of this podcast. I think Matt wins this episode. I think he definitely wins this week.
And that one, he just kind of.
And that's a crushing blow for me because I don't think I've ever tried harder than I have this week, and he still beat me too. So.
Yeah, there are many aspects of the bow, and when you are the first woman within the New York Philharmonic in 1966, what do they say about you?
They say you are the only girl in the orchestra.
Facts.
Unfortunately, they also say that you had the men carry your instrument, even though they're carrying their own.
Well, by proxy, if she's the only girl in the orchestra, that means she's the baddest bitch in the orchestra.
There you go. There you go.
That's right. Why I brought out what I do for my life for this episode, because this short film, because it is a short film, which is my biggest gripe about this documentary, is that it needs to be longer, is about the upright bass. And I play upright bass, and it changed my life. Because she is an inspiration. And even though there are many teaching aspects with what she has to say that I vehemently disagree with as a musician, I am still insanely inspired by her and what she's done for the instrument, what she's done for musicians and performing musicians, because originally I wanted to be on stage performing this stuff. And to know that she doesn't have children, but her children are her students, just connected, and it just changed my life. And that's why I had to showcase what I can do. So that is my bass. I'm probably going to put it down now, even though I need to put it down and take it to the shop because I had an incident today.
Then press it.
Well, I had an incident today where the corner of my bass hit something and it completely chipped the wood off, and I am very upset. And good old Bertha is her name, and I talked to Bertha. I make sure Bertha's okay. And she was not okay this morning when I was trying to practice and get my day started, and I was just very concerned. So we're going to be taking Bertha into the shop tomorrow after this cast so we can get the bridge reset, new strings. We're going to treat her right, and we're going to show that pets aren't just like humans. They're mainly pets. Or I said that wrong. Basses aren't like humans. They're mainly pets. You can tell I'm starting to feel what I chugged at the beginning of the intro. But
I think I mentioned this earlier, though. When you told me about that, I imagine is Sam being her when they're moving the Steinway out of her apartment. And she's just like, oh, like every move, which I also can agree with. I know how it feels when you watch somebody touch some shit. You're like, I love that.
Be careful with it.
Yeah.
But yes, our second pick this week is the recent Oscar winner for Best Documentary Short, The Only Girl in the Orchestra, which, as we have talked about, is about son of a bitch, I can't remember her fucking name.
I couldn't remember her name either.
Jesus Christ, I'm an asshole.
You two are pieces of shit because you should have known.
Nah, because my gripe is your gripe, Sam. The moment this hit the 30-minute mark, I swear to God, I looked up at the screen and was like, okay, I'm ready for this documentary. I went, the fuck? I need more information now.
Oren O'Brien, who is say what?
What? It's Ornan with an O, not a C. Okay. So it's not Cornyn.
I didn't hear Cornyn. Jackson was right.
I was right. For once. But
I really was joking.
I know. But what was I going to say? Oh,
Just
yeah,
surprising.
Lauren O'Brien, who, as Sam alluded to, was the first female member of the New York Philharmonic. She played with Leonard Bernstein all the way back in the 60s. She is a legendary bass player and musician, and is the daughter of famous actor George O'Brien and Marguerite Churchill.
That was crazy. That was
I
crazy.
was like, what the fuck? Like, and when they said that, I was like, how old is she? Because she didn't look that old to me. And I looked it up and she's 87. That's the youngest looking 87-year-old I've ever fucking seen. I was like, Jesus Christ, how is that possible?
Because she found what she loves to do in life and had not let that corrupt her.
Exactly.
She's so young.
That's the mission out there for you kids. If you do what you love, you get to be that.
Actually,
that
what separates our all three of our things, because like there is connectors to like all three of our documentaries. This one separates because the person who the documentary is about does not let this like tear her apart. And
I mean, like she
is very
she's
level.
definitely the most wholesome subject of the three. That's for sure.
Yes.
And yeah, this was. I am 1,000,000% with you, Sam. My only gripe with this thing is that it wasn't longer. This should have been a feature documentary. I mean, like I loved it. I loved every second of it. I thought it was very sweet, very wholesome. I loved learning about this woman, and she was so fascinating, and I loved learning about her passion for music. And just like I said with Matt's pick, again, I love how you picked something so personal to you because it allowed me to kind of see it through your eyes and just learn more about bass playing and all that. Because I knew it was about a musician. I didn't know it was about a bass player specifically. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I see why Sam picked this. So now I kind of get to learn.
We're the heart of the orchestra. We're the supporting role. We're the hero support. Okay.
I'm curious.
The orchestra.
Because that's the thing is I was curious that you said you disagreed with some things she was saying. And I was kind of curious how you felt about that, because when I was watching this, I too was kind of doing that, Jackson, where I was thinking like, oh, I'm sure this is how Sam feels about, bass playing and shit. And all of a sudden she's like, you're in the background. You're a soldier. That's all you do. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if Sam, and then when you said that, I was like, okay, maybe Sam doesn't.
Surprisingly, that's the part I agree with, which is also why I loved that this started with Mahler 2. I do not understand why it started with Mahler 2, because Mahler 3 is where the bass solo is actually at, that gives us that moment. But my biggest complaint was, I'm biased. I've had a lot of ups and downs with the upright bass. It's a fickle instrument, just as she says. There's a lot of aspects to it that just do not want to gel with you. And I dropped out of school twice because the teacher I had was very harsh and very rigorous and wanted so much of you to adapt yourself to him. And that's why I loved her teaching, because she put herself with her students. It wasn't like, I am here to observe you until it needed to be. But then it was when the moments that it needed to be is when I did not like what she was saying, which is like, if you have something else you love as much as playing bass, just go do it. Don't even bother, because as someone who has done that, and come back to the bass and learn to love it again, I don't think that journey never ever ends. And I very much do not think you need talent to be good at the bass. And that was where I was not agreeing with her, because she says the only way to succeed with it is to have talent. And I get, maybe that's the case for people who perform, because I don't perform anymore. I just write music. And so it emotionally just fucked me up to hear her say that, because that's exactly what my teacher would tell me, is like, you don't have this skill, and so you're never going to understand this instrument. And I think any and every instrument is accessible and everyone can be a musician. It's just how far you take it. And so that was the very, very hard disconnect I had with her. But that's why I wanted more of what her opinions were and where she grew up and what the changes, because we go from the 60s into 70s and then it just shoots to the modern time, and we have such a huge gap of including women within the orchestra on a professional level, because New York Philharmonic is where you want to be on top of some other things. And so they just rushed that And then they showed so many of her students that were female that now teach and now perform. And that one lady who was like, I've never had a man carry my stuff, because as a person who plays your instrument, you're in charge of that. You're not going to have somebody else do that. So I completely related to that, even though I'm a man. I completely related, and I love that aspect. And I wanted so many more details that just I couldn't get. And I know a lot of it has to do with the fact that her parents were dead, and her niece didn't really get to know them. And so we didn't get this other kind of aspect because everyone in their family's dead. And I don't know where I would have wanted more, but I know I wanted more.
Oh, I can tell you exactly where I would have.
Same. I was.
Yeah, there was so
much. I was like, what?
So much more.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I was like, we just barely scratched the surface of this woman's life. There was so much more.
The 30-minute mark is where you get started on the movie. Like that is where they got, in my opinion, like they had set everything up right. Like that's the first 30. Then you got whatever the fuck is going on currently, and I feel like they had just started getting there, and I was like, I want more. Yes.
Well, and I feel like, again, the woman is 87 years old. She's lived a full life. There is so much that they did not show us that we could have explored. We could have seen like more of her students. We could have seen, I would have loved to have seen, her students talking about what she taught them. Because again, Sam, that may have helped with your problem, because if they had described her process, maybe she didn't necessarily say that to them when she was teaching them. We could have found that out, or you could have seen like, oh, okay, so I see how her approach is with her student. You saw a little bit of it, but I would have liked to have heard it in their own words, kind of, because it's like, that would have been interesting. There were so many other things that they could have,
One of my favorite.
What they did show, I thought, was extremely interesting, extremely informative. I liked them showing her, teaching her students and giving the lessons. I liked her. I loved the scene where she's sitting there with her friend and reading that old sexist like newspaper article where she's just saying like, it's not that there's anything overtly like misogynistic in the article, like, oh, she's a dame, so she can't. It's more just the fact that they're not taking her seriously. It gives you an idea of what she was up against, even if it wasn't like in your face, like just the fact that they're writing about her and all they're saying is, oh, it's cute that she's in the orchestra and they're carrying her bags and they don't hit on her. It's like she says. They talk nothing about the years and years I spent studying this and all the training I had.
They don't want you to be pretty because that distracts them, but they don't want you to be ugly because then they don't want to play with you.
If it was a male musician, they would have talked about all the background and the rigorous discipline they had gone through and all their skills. But here it's like, oh, how cute! There's a girl in the orchestra. So again,
did either of y'all catch the photo of her as Princess Leia?
No.
I was gonna say the one photo I was.
It was a fun photo.
I was gonna say the one photo I saw that I really liked was of course like the black and white ones, but it's where she's got the bass on the other side of the tree and she's trying to reach her arm around to play
the bass.
And I don't know why I was just like, I fuck with that photo so much. It just says a lot about her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think
like a tree could be in her fucking way and that would not
she'll
stop
still
her
do it.
trying to play. Yeah.
She is a trailblazer, if there ever is a term for that, for bass players, for women, for just people in general who want to be musicians but don't think they have what it takes. And that's where the photo I was talking about was when she was going through the part where she just started studying music, and there's a group of a bunch of people around a piano, but she's laying on the ground dressed as Princess Leia with the sheet music in her hand. And it inspires me a lot, because that's the big point that I want to get to from her playing with her student, where she picked the beginning of the piece and he picked a few measures into it and it just locked in. And it's the difference between playing music and truly living the music that you play. And that is understanding all facets of it.
What you just said, by the way, I think applies to all three documentaries in the best way possible. That should be I
also think like when you look at all three documentaries, this one is the subject of this one is very different in the sense that like the other two subjects definitely had egos that could get out of control at times. This woman has no ego whatsoever. And that was also one of my favorite parts was, that part where she's sitting with her niece in the kitchen that resonated, that hit me home, and that just showed me who she was, where she's saying like she's trying to tell her like, Aunt Oren, you've lived a full life, and you've accomplished all these things, and you're legendary. She says like, you are trying to make me more important than other people, and I'm not comfortable with that. So stop. I don't want to have that conversation. And I was just like, that right there, that just sums the woman up for me. Just like so wholesome, so humble, so lovely, and she could rest on her laurels as much as she wanted because she has. And I sat there and I said, I love that you say that, but you have accomplished so much and you are a legend, just so you know. But I love that, again, she's just like, that's how every famous person should think, is just like, don't make me more important than anyone else. No matter what I've accomplished. I love that. That was just like, okay, you're a real one for sure.
100%. No, that's how I felt too. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel going into it. I definitely was not sure what I was going to think. But by the end of it, I felt very much like, nah, you're a G.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, while I was saying that, Sam, earlier, like I was curious at how you felt when she did say the whole, you are the floor, they would collapse under you. I went, okay, I see what you're saying.
That is my favorite moment of playing bass, which I will get into as well, is the moment when you just lock in and everything all comes together. And I thought I was scared of it at first when I first started feeling this back in high school, was the bass would vibrate so much, because she talks about vibrating every corner of that instrument, that I would start to get a little sick to my stomach because it would vibrate so heavy that it would turn my stomach, and I didn't know what was going on. And that is what she's talking about, and that stable moment that you can take other people who are the most important thing and let them just live their life doing that. And it's like, you are the like needle prick that just hits the moment, and then you can let the blood flow. And that's why we call ourselves the heart of the orchestra, because we are beating, and we are stable, and we are strong within a section. And it means so much for her to hear that, like, it's not about what you're playing, it's about being with the people that change what you're playing into. Also, like, as someone who has been first chair and someone who's been seventh chair, you are important no matter what, but like that knowledge of like, don't be the soloist of every piece is important to hear as a musician. And I love that little segment where she talks about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was definitely, again, like I said, for Matt, that was something that was really fun for me watching this. I love the just learning about her. I loved learning about the subject matter, but again, just like watching it and thinking to myself, like, how it looks through Sam's eyes, and like why he picked this and how this is going to resonate with him, and just learning more about like this thing that I know you've always been into, just the bass, like, because it's funny, I forget a lot of the time. It's funny, like, because I had very few friends in high school who were outside of the like acting section, and you were so involved with all of us, and you teched all the shows, and I forget sometimes that wasn't your major. You were like a music major, and that's what you always did. And I'm just like, yeah, that is definitely, Sam spent a lot of time that I never saw playing. I always knew you were a bass player, but there were a lot of moments like that I never saw. I never like saw the minutia of it like I did with all the acting we did and all the shows that we did. So again, seeing this was like fascinating, just learning about it more from like more about what you do and like what your perspective on it would be.
We always knew Sam was gonna play that day because he was lugging that shit around. And so you just show up and he's just like, and obviously also, by the way, Sam, I love you. When you were lugging that shit around, you could see in your face, God fucking damn it. Like,
I hate this thing.
Yes, you're like, I hate this with every, like, this is the least
favorite. They showed
favorite.
it for like 2 seconds. She got the attachment that's the wheel that slides into the bottom, and you can just roll the wheel and turn it wherever. I don't have one. My shoulders after a concert, when I have to walk all the way to the auditorium, are just like red from the straps just digging into my shoulders on my instrument. I hate carrying that thing. It's so light when you're like, okay, but when you have to carry it somewhere, it is so heavy.
We've put it in the back of my car, multiple cars, and every car I put it into, all the seats are down. You cannot just put it in the trunk. You have to make sure it's probably going to stick right up in between you guys, honestly.
Yep, it comes between the center console, and then you either dip around the head of the base, or you like it's just far enough you can like slide it back and like see eye contact.
Yeah. So yeah, the fact that she had so many bases were like that was no joke. I felt a little bad for the movers because she sat there and she's like, "This is 100-year-old Steinway." What do you hope for the future of the podcast? Hope to never fucking see you again.
Well, I hope to one day put an axe through Matt's head for making me watch The Spoils of Babylon.
The thing with this season of the podcast, I think I've been able to inject some of my music that I've kind of like started and never like did anything with, and then got inspiration from that. And so I'm really looking forward to the season 3 intro. I started it a few days ago, and whenever that may be, if we make it to a season 3, we could get canceled. The whole world could blow up. We don't know. But it is in the bank, and I'm excited to share more of that, more movies that mean a lot to me, and also discover new movies that I have not seen and always have wanted to.
Genuinely, my hope is that we continue to grow, we continue to get more subscribers, viewers. I would love to do an in-person episode where all 3 of us are in the same room. That would be a lot of fun. I'd like to, honestly, just my main hope is that it just continues to be fun, that it continues to grow and expanding and getting more fun, and we're going to keep feeling creatively fulfilled by it. And I just hope we get ourselves a good audience. We're starting to build one, and I just hope that, we just keep having fun with it.
Keep on keeping on, I guess. Keep watching good movies. And hopefully one day we can all record in the same room for one special episode. That'll be fun. Because I would like to see them again.
Let's transition to our next film.
Yes. Our last...
And now we are on the other side of the wind. Jackson, take it away.
Oh, man.
We're on the other side of my wind.
Maybe your dumbest bit yet, and I love it.
It's gonna get...
Yes. Our last pick for the documentary special is my pick, which is They'll Love Me When I'm Dead. Which, if you can, ladies and gentlemen, I want you, whenever Sam comes back in the frame, I don't know where he went. Uh-oh. I want you to...
It's not good. I'm missing my glove. I'm missing my prosthetic nose. And I'm missing the beard that I was going to have on my body.
But you were going to dress up like him.
I was fully
honestly,
there.
Sam, this moment, you should not be in a school.
Maybe I should take the glove off.
Yeah. You're like
it's
the
not-
Michael Jackson of shooters.
At least it's not a trench coat.
No, it is, isn't it?
It's a leather jacket.
Yeah, it's just a leather jacket brought to you by
Did it-
Andrew Walters.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a trench coat.
Well,
But you also are you are towing the line right now.
should I switch my black shirt into a colorful one and take off?
No, switch your glasses for a ski mask, motherfucker.
Jesus
Found my
Christ.
other glove.
Okay. Good. I'm glad.
Unlike OJ.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh man. Well,
I was supposed to have the nose, and I was gonna have the gloves, and I was.
it's fine. I'm glad because I'm going to dress up like him for a future episode, and I will have the full shebang. So I'm glad that you didn't do it, so you don't steal my thunder.
And in that outfit, you look like a Jalo killer.
Oh, well, I'm putting it back on then.
That is exactly what you look like. Like the black gloves, the black leather hand. All you need is, like, again, the ski mask, and then a POV shot with you with a knife. And you are a Jalo killer, my friend.
You are the cat o' nine tails. But yes.
It's taken forever. And you know what? I think there's a good reason why it's taken forever to get to
Because
this.
it took
this
forever
part.
for this fucking movie to get made. That's why. But
Lift
yes,
us off with
yes. So my pick is the Love Me When I'm Dead, which is I want you, ladies and gentlemen, if you are capable of doing so, I want you to picture this. You're Orson Welles. You are one of the most legendary filmmakers to have ever lived. You made, in addition to many other films, you made Citizen Kane, which is considered to be the greatest movie of all time by many, many people. You also made lots of other great films like The Magnificent Ambersons and The Trial and The Lady from Shanghai and Chimes at Midnight and Touch of Evil, and just, you're a fucking genius. But Hollywood just doesn't see it that way. They kick you out because they suck. They suck ass.
Some could say Hollywood considered him the third man.
They sure did. They sure did. And they they kicked him out of Hollywood. And he spent decades in exile in Europe, struggling to get the funds just to make any movies. But he said to himself, enough of this shit. I'm going to make a comeback. I'm going to come back to Hollywood. I'm going to make my big triumphant return. And I'm going to make a film called The Other Side of the Wind. And he shot that shit over 6 fucking years. He spent shooting that shit. And all kinds of shit went wrong. All kinds of shit went wrong. The fucking one of the main actors had to leave after 3 weeks, and they had to reshoot all of his fucking scenes. He had to fucking deal with so many. The Shah of Iran was trying to get up in his business and keep the footage for himself.
Okay. If Orson Welles can tell people how to make a movie with Citizen Kane, right? This should be the way not to make a movie. Like he should have both lessons in his cup. Go ahead. Because yes, the Shah of Iran was a huge fuck up that every student filmmaker should know. When you're accepting money from people, know who you're accepting it from. If it's Dennis, that's cool. That's usual. If it's the Shah of Iran or a mafia person, beware.
He was that fucking desperate, though. But yes, you're right.
And
you should never, ever accept money from the Shah of Iran. It will never end well.
But that's how insane Orson was. But you're going to get to that.
That's how desperate he was, because Hollywood wouldn't give him the money. He had to go to the Shah. And we're not talking about Phil Leotardo from The Sopranos here. We're talking about the real Shah of Iran. Sopranos fans will get it. But he spent 6 years shooting this shit, and he was convinced that this was going to be his comeback. He was going to be back in the Hollywood spotlight. Never came to fruition.
Well, there was cum in the back of a car.
There was that.
That's about the only comeback there was.
There was cum in the back of a car, and there was cum. There was cum in the back of a car, and there was cum in the back of an Oya Kodar. If you
that's a good one. I like that. That was good.
There you go.
There we go. That's
go.
Cheers to that. I will cheers to that.
Cheers to that, indeed.
Oh, God.
Cheers to that.
Oh, if he could fit.
But okay.
Sorry.
But yes, he was trying to make this movie. It went off the fucking rails. The footage was held by the Iranian government for many, many years. He couldn't fucking get access to it. And all of this is chronicled in this documentary about the making of The Other Side of the Wind, which after 48 years,
really is
48 years, my
the other
friend.
side of the wind. It really is the other side of the wind because that's what he said. It's just us, all about us doing what we're doing right now, trying to make it.
Oh, no. So I make that joke about the crop dusting thing. Other Side of the Wind is definitely like a death thing. 110%.
Yeah. But
I'm not dumb, guys. I just pretend to be dumb.
But after 48 years after he started shooting the damn thing, in 2018, they finally released the finished cut of the film on Netflix, which was over 30 years after he had died. And it was a pretty good movie. It's not one of his best movies, but it's a pretty good movie. But the point is that they released the damn thing, and we finally got to saw it. And this is the documentary chronicling his adventures trying to make the film.
Can I say this?
Yes.
Citizen Kane, yes, is the greatest American movie of all time. Sure. When I watched this, granted, it took, like you said, 30 years after it had to come out. Regardless of it even being shown to people, when you watch the movie, you're like, oh, I've seen movies like this. And they all came out in like the fucking 90s, maybe the 2000s.
He was ahead of his
and you're
time.
just like, whoa. But, you know, like Homeboy was way ahead of his time to the point where not even in the 80s did they do shit like he did. It took them to the 90s and like late 90s.
Yeah. And I have all my spiel that I'm going to give about it ready to go. So before I do, I will let the two of you go ahead and say what you thought about it.
So, Matt, I know you have a big problem with this movie, and I am really all about it. Because the fact that Alan goddamn fucking Cumming...
That's
right.
I forgot about him. I don't think about him in this movie. He doesn't exist, that fuck. That fucking fuck. We're talking about fuckers and the fuckery of all fucking bull fucking shit. We're talking about that goddamn man right there whose last name is my fucking sperm coming all over his goddamn Twitter account. That stupid fuck. Wow. Sorry.
I completely forgot about your feud with Alan Cumming.
I don't think about him when I see this movie. And he's in it. And I don't think about him. Because you know what? There's about 8 billion people who can do an Orson Welles impression. This man is not the one. He is like the 5th, the 8th, the fucking 15th. He is not the one. They had a David Fincher movie where the dude who played Orson Welles could have just came back and done this shit. But nah, we're going to get Alan Cummings because he's on Traitors. Who gives a fuck about that show, you fucking cunt? Ugh! My eyes were wide fucking shut for this performance, that's for sure.
So, yeah. Anytime Alan Cumming...
I'm done. We're just going to let go of why I hate...
No, please
Nightcrawler?
Please explain why you hate Alan Cumming. Please explain for the audience.
Okay, so as we say on the show, I'm gonna do this is like a hat on a hat, except for it's a picture this on side of a picture this. Picture this. 2013. I'm a young little lad, and I am watching Eyes Wide Shut for the first time. I got this shit on DVD. This is Stanley Kubrick's last movie. It's the last movie I've not seen from him. And this is a big night for me. I'm up alone in my room watching this movie that I honestly at the time could not quite comprehend. And I'm sitting there, I can't quite comprehend the movie. But you know what I can comprehend? Alan Cumming. I can comprehend him. I can comprehend Nightcrawler showing up as a hotel clerk for one scene. And not only can I comprehend that,
I can commend that. I can appreciate that. I can be elated that I see a familiar face in a movie that I'm trying to figure out because I don't want it to look stupid. When somebody asks me, you've seen it, yeah, what does it mean? But I'm also, it's 2013. And we have Alan Cumming. And we also, in 2013, you know what we also have? We have this great invention that is called Twitter. That's what it's called. It's called Twitter. And you know what I do? I message Mr. Cumming. I don't message him. I tag him in a tweet. And all it says is, when you're watching, when you're watching, eyes wide shut. And Alan Cumming pops up out of nowhere, period. I used U or Y, O, U, apostrophe, R-E, U-R. What does Alan Cumming say? That's not even a proper sentence! And that's all he says. Fuck you. I don't care I saw you in this movie. And in fact, I will go as far to erase you from my memory from every other movie you have been involved in. Ergo, Spy Kids, I don't know who the fuck you are, my friend. I watched X-Men 2 the other night. You know who I saw? A fucking faceless ghost. When I'm coming, I don't think Alan. I think Jim. And by the way, Jim Cummings means more to me than you ever will, you piece of shit who was a part of my childhood and meant a lot to me, and I thought you were a great actor, and all you did was shit on me for a tweet that all was doing was praising you for being a good performer? Yeah, fuck you, buddy. You're the traitor. That's the joke on that show. You're the traitor. And that is why I hate Alan Cumming.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that piano accompaniment, Sam. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Matt, that was officially, I'm not kidding. That is the funniest thing you have ever done. Perhaps the hardest I've ever laughed on this show in the 33 episodes that we have recorded, just so you know.
Well, thank you. There's no bounds that exists for my hatred for this man.
I completely forgot that as soon as you brought it up, I was like, oh my God, that's right.
If I can, I will try to find it and send you a screenshot of the whole interaction. It was not an improper sentence. Sorry, fuckface. It wasn't.
Yeah, there's no reason to say that. That's just, yeah.
Dick is a middle name.
But now that we've gotten the Alan Cumming, he is now at the top of the list of our enemies at this point.
You know what? And I'll strangle his ass in public. I don't give a fuck.
Like he's higher than Steven Seagal. He's higher than the Hoover Society.
Because the other people we offended, but I don't think they didn't offend us.
Yeah.
Alan Cumming offended me.
Alan Cumming made it personal.
Yes, he made it personal. This isn't like we're just throwing shit out there.
Yeah. No, he had it coming.
On site, I would say.
He absolutely had it coming. He brought it on himself.
He's not going to hear the end of it.
But yeah, so
behind this man this argument
to blame.
I was gonna do it, Sam, but I did. Thank you.
What was he? What were you doing?
He had it coming. He only had Alan.
He had it coming. He had it coming. Literally.
He did. Yes.
But
his last name also had it coming.
Yes. But so yeah, I'll turn it over to you first. What'd you think of this one?
First time I saw this, I did not particularly enjoy watching it, and I really enjoyed watching the movie. I have not rewatched the movie yet, but I loved watching it this time, minus Alan Cumming. anytime he was not narrating and they kind of let the thing take off, I was sold and I was all about it. And it gets so sad at the end. The conversation about John Huston finding out that this dude had footage of him laughing and coming to his house just to watch it, and then hearing that he broke down and cried is like, it makes me think of that image where he's on his back. That image just keeps coming into my head every time I think of this movie, because there's so much deeply like problematic stuff going on in their lives that just they somehow managed to keep it going. And even though things didn't work out, it's gripping. And I really, really enjoyed it. There's some things I'll get into, but I want to let you kind of go. Those are my initial impressions of this rewatch. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but I really enjoyed rewatching this.
And Matt,
I don't know if I'd mentioned this in the recording, but yes, I watched this a lot when it came out. I really enjoyed it. I thought it really spoke a lot of like Orson as a person, which I thought was cool because you always know, or before this, to me, I'd always kind of known him as this like figure. He's like a, which everyone they mention this. It's like he is a figure, he is a stature, but also when you see this, you kind of see like there's this human aspect to him that is very deep. Like the fact that he thinks betraying a friend is the most unforgivable sin speaks so much volumes about his like life. And there was things that he said that I quite agreed with as a director. Like when he's talking about happy accidents, the director presides over accidents. I was like, they should probably teach that in fucking movies or film school. Be like, hey, yeah, you think you're going to be perfect. You think you're going to be Fincher or whatever, or Kubrick. But really, you're going to have to adapt to whatever accidents or shit goes on during the process of setting up your shot and shots, et cetera, and your filming day.
Right.
You have to be privy to that. And if you're not, you're just kind of going to shit your pants, to be honest. Yeah. And that's what I thought. What he said was perfect in that, like, you have to preside over accidents and stuff. And I thought there were some other things he said too, which was very interesting. But this was also his most different film, which shows that he was at least at the very end willing to say, hey, maybe anything that I think is right could be wrong. Let me try that shit. And so he was just trying, like, let me do the opposite of what I did before on all these other films. Let me do the exact opposite for this last one. Not even that he thought it was his last one exactly, but it ended up being his last one. And it's like, damn, he's still taking risks. Granted, it took, like I said, it's not the way to make a movie because you don't want to alienate your friends, which he did. It seemed like he alienated everyone around him, especially in this last bit of his life, which you should not do as a director. And yeah, but I think what he was doing, which was pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries, and trying new shit, was awesome. And when I did see the movie, as much as I love it, it's not my favorite of his. I can say, like, he pushed boundaries on that one, probably the most that he ever did before, arguably, because that's just to me. This one is the most boundary pushing. Like, he said, fuck it. And that's why I like the movie that he made. And I also like the documentary because it shows that, yeah, he wasn't the greatest person, like you said, Jackson. And like I said, like I was bringing up, he definitely ruined some friendships. Not just Peter Bogdanovich either. And that's the main one. You'd think you'd want the dude you're kind of mentoring to like still like you, but he felt betrayed. And obviously they talk about that in the documentary, but that just becomes a whole thing where he's almost too personal to become a director, because you got to as a director, you almost have to like have a certain level. You have to have one layer at least of like, bulletproof like layer. And I don't think he ever had that. You have to have a little bit of like somebody can say the worst thing about you or your movie that you care about, and you got to just let it go. And I don't think he had that layer to him, which is probably what caused the movie and also caused the whole downfall. But I love the movie. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely. This was my second time, and of course, I had to also rewatch Other Side of the Wind. I rewatched that, and then I rewatched this right afterwards. So back to back, saw them both, and it was the first time I'd seen either of them since they came out in 2018, and I enjoyed them both back then. But watching them now was a completely, this shit went from like 2D to 3D watching it this time, like very different experience because when I saw them both at the time, I'd only seen one Orson Welles movie. I bet you can't guess what it was. I saw Citizen Kane literally because Other Side of the Wind I knew was coming out soon, and I was like, I want to have seen that.
Wait, it
before.
took you that long to see?
I know.
That's my thing. Is I thought that was just the first one you saw back when like we were in high school or some shit.
Citizen Kane for the longest time was my biggest cinematic blind spot. I had wanted to see it for so long and had just never gotten around to it. And that was finally my excuse to say, like, I cannot put this off anymore. I finally got to watch this movie. And so I saw it, loved it, was like, I completely see what everybody's talking about. This is like one of the greatest movies of all time. I love it. And so, but again, with that being the context, like, I'd only just seen that movie. I didn't know anything at the time about any of his other movies. And then I watched Other Side of the Wind, and then I watched the documentary, and that was like my experience watching it at that time. Now, watching it, however, like 7 years later, I guess, however long it's been, I am now a fucking die-hard Orson Welles fan. He is like one of my absolute idols. I've seen almost all of his movies. I know so much more about him, his career, his just so much more about him. So watching it now again, it was like going from 2D to 3D, just a completely different experience, both the movie and the documentary. Because now I'm much more well versed in him, and I'm such an admirer of his now. And if you're an Orson Welles fan, you cannot help but love this documentary because, first of all, just seeing the process of him getting the movie made was fascinating. And then just because that's mainly what it's about. But then they do go into a lot of like external stuff.
It
like
felt, well, in the whole movie to me felt like the main, the through ground was the movie.
Yeah.
The whole time, honestly, even from the beginning, I felt like all of his relationships were what's kind of surrounding the whole thing, which is,
I mean, because even though that's like the kind of, like the foundation is about the movie, they cover a lot of like his personal life and like how his earlier career had led to this and kind of what happened afterwards and just kind of all kinds of stuff. And for me, we touched on it, like just like yours, Matt, mine is about someone who is flawed for sure, was not always making very smart decisions. I personally, and I imagine it's the way you feel about Hunter S. Thompson, for me, in spite of whatever flaws he had, I really I admire the guy. I think he was a good person at heart. He just didn't always make the best choices. I just think like some people are like that, where there's goodness in them and they try to be good people, but sometimes they're just very self-destructive and sometimes they just don't make the best choices. And that's kind of who he was to me. And it's funny because, Keith Baxter, who was the lead in Chimes at Midnight, who played Prince Hal, once said that, he was like a real life Falstaff, basically. Like that's kind of like he was kind of a scoundrel, not always up to the best stuff, but at the end of the day, he was dependable and he came through for you, and I'm just like that kind of sums and Orson, famously saw himself as Falstaff. Like Chimes at Midnight was his most personal movie because that's how he saw himself. Like this guy who had been great once, like this great knight, and now was like old, fat, washed up and all this stuff and everybody made fun of, and so that's kind of, and it's sad to me that, like I know I did the bit at the beginning making fun of the wine commercial, but, it is sad to me how much that kind of seems to be how people see him these days. Like, you see so many parodies and stuff like The Critic and, all these other shows.
Babylon.
So, and the Spoils of Babylon, yeah, I didn't appreciate Will Ferrell's, imitation of him. Where, that's kind of how people see him as like, oh yeah, the old fat washed up loser who, made one good movie and just that's his legacy now. And I'm just like, okay, like, look, I watch the wine commercial outtakes. I laugh at it as much as anybody, but I know that's not who he was. I like to see that as being who he was. It's not true. And I love how they touch on that at the end of the documentary, where they're saying like he wasn't the ogre everybody thought he was. He was still working. He was still trying to make movies. He wasn't just sitting around wasting away, not doing anything productive. Like
nobody was giving him the money to make movies that he needed.
That's the problem is like, yeah, like he would be working if people would let him, but all he could do was frozen pea commercials and wine commercials. That's all he got hired for.
You get the point.
And Jackson, I want to say this real quick. By the way, I don't think we feel the same way about this because while you did not like Hunter S. Thompson, I've always loved Orson Welles. I loved the documentary when it came out. I've never hated him. Yes, he is flawed, but I've never had an issue with him. And that was partially because of the whole Jack Shoulder incident, which I've mentioned. But also, my uncle showed this to me when I was super young. He showed this in Star Wars 4 back to back, but he showed Star Wars 4, of course, first. But the whole time Star Wars 4 was playing, all he was talking about was how the Empire was right. Yeah, he's a Republican. You figure that out. However, then he showed me Citizen Kane after that and was like, this is the movie that is like the be all and end all of movies. You will watch, endless movies and you will see shots from this movie and other movies. And I said, cool, let me do that. And honestly, as a kid, I didn't get the plot, but the images were amazing. I thought they were brilliant, and they definitely left an impression in my fucking head because, yeah, every time I watched a movie and I saw a line of black cars pull up to a thing, Citizen Kane. Anytime I watched a fucking camera go from the top of a building through the skylight into the floor, Citizen Kane. Anytime I watched a fucking shot that was definitely like the ground was totally removed and they had to put the camera down there, that's Citizen Kane, However, again, when I say this, I always think Other Side of the Wind is the most crazy film, but Citizen Kane definitely, and for sure I had this in my, head as a kid, like Orson Welles is the god.
Well, here's what I have to say. I mean,
he is the god, low key.
He absolutely is. And the thing about Orson, and you see it in this movie so much, I swear that man never stopped innovating. I mean, every single movie of his I have ever seen, there is something in that film that no one had done at that point in time. Like,
and I want to say this too, not only in the film, but I mentioned this as a joke earlier. The Third Man she is in. I swear to God, the fucking moment they reveal his face, and he turns around in the shadow and gives that little smirk. I fucking shit you not. Like, I was like, that is genius.
Yeah.
That is the best, look ever, especially you've been looking for me. I
that's the thing too that I have to mention about him. He does not, I feel he does not get enough credit as an actor. I think he is as good of an actor, honestly, as he was a director. I mean, he is just, his performance in Citizen Kane, his performance in The Third Man, he's not in The Third Man very much in terms of screen time, but holy shit, does he make an impression. Like you said, that is one of the most, The Third Man to me, I didn't love that movie. That scene, the reveal scene, is one of the most brilliant most well-directed scenes I've ever seen in anything. Like, and just, the smirk he gives, the scene on the fucking Ferris wheel is absolutely god tier. Just
that movie also gives me, the zither, which is the instrument they use for half of it.
Yeah.
Brilliant use of, that instrument in that.
Yeah. And he's such an incredible, and we talked about it in Chimes at Midnight. Shakespeare's not for every actor, but for him to be able to spit that dialogue out so effortlessly, like it's fucking nothing. I mean, just he had a way of just having such a commanding presence, or just no matter what kind of character he was playing, whether he's playing like a newspaper tycoon in Kane, or this corrupt police chief in Touch of Evil, or a knight, a former knight in Chimes at Midnight, or whatever it is, it's like he was incredibly versatile. You 100% believed every single character he played, and almost every character he played, because he was almost always the lead in all of the films that he directed. And every time, like Charles Foster Kane is completely different than John Falstaff, who's completely different than, Captain Quinlan from Touch of Evil, who's completely different from the Advocate from The Trial, who's, just it's always different characters, and you believe it. And it's hard when you're that iconic, when you've got that voice and that face that everybody recognizes, to differentiate yourself. But he did it every single time. And because something that, it's funny because I didn't agree with like a lot of his opinions later in life about like new wave. And it's funny because in The Other Side of the Wind, he's completely just roasting the shit out of new wave movies, like ruthlessly. And it makes me sad that he was one of the many classic directors who was shaking their fist at the clouds like that. But one thing he did say that I have to respect, I don't agree with it, but I respect it because it shows you who he was as a director. There's a clip where he's in front of a crowd and he's giving a speech and he's just like, if there's one thing I never want to see again in a modern film, it's another goddamn homage. Like, I am so tired of filmmakers like borrowing from other people. And
that's everything nowadays. Literally,
but
nowadays does not borrow from somebody else.
To his credit, he says afterwards, he says it's slightly paradoxical though, because our brightest young filmmakers today are constantly using homages. So, I'm confused by that. But, so he admitted,
he's always on the cusp of originality, and that is the fucking truth. And you're talking about the man who's like okay, so I'm going to go into a very quick thing because I also have something else to say. Very quick.
The point I was going to make before you go into your thing is that's who he was as a director, because every movie he ever made, he wasn't putting shit in movies that he had seen somewhere else. He was constantly innovating. Every single movie he made, he was innovating, always pushing the envelope and doing new things. So,
and because film as an art form is very new. It's very new compared to every other art form there is. I've said this before, but I don't think I've said this on the cast. So I'm putting this out there. Every art form is relatively old. Writing, painting, that shit. Film, probably about 100 years old, maybe about 120 now. That's new. So when we talk about people who are, yes, like there are certain people who are going to fucking repeat shit. They don't talk about in art when the first 100 years, people probably just kept repeating the same fucking shit. They don't talk about that because there's 400 to 500 to whatever, I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's going to be some insane
thousands.
Number.
Thousands of years of art.
Thousands of years of art. You go from this, which is an amalgamation of all the arts. Yeah, we're going to start recreating shit for a couple hundred years. Maybe, we're starting to get to the point where somebody makes some crazy shit like Substance, which is a little different. But even that has roots in other things. Everything film does always has the root. So and he had the benefit of being in the first 50 years. We have the disadvantage of being in the next 50 years. And so, I'm sure near the, we're young. So halfway through, we're going to discover some new shit. No doubt. I would hope. But that's just where I get to the whole, we're referencing it ourselves.
Well, I've kind of always.
Years. So yeah, we're going to reference ourselves. Nope. Yeah. Who's going to remember John Wick in 100 years? Will people or will people not? Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know yet. Will that be the one that changed everything? Or is there going to be one in the next 5 that just usurps everything, usurps or whatever the fuck. And that's what I think about art is great. But also what Orson did, which he became the artist, so to speak. Picasso even, he had the whole blue period later on in his life. That changed up everything. Orson is that way too. He had his moment where he had his I'm going to control everything. And then he had his moment, which I wish could have lasted longer, where he said, fuck controlling everything.
Yeah, he definitely, again, and that's something I've always said too, is, the older directors had the advantage of being kind of creating the language, and then the later filmmakers, it's you weren't paying homage because you were there at the beginning. There was nothing to pay homage to. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Again, I don't agree with him necessarily, but I think it does speak to the point of, in his head, no matter how old he got, no matter how many movies he made, he refused to do something just because he saw it somewhere else. He's like, I'm going to do it because I want to do it. I'm going to keep innovating because Citizen Kane, the whole like deep focus, having multiple layers in the background at once that had never been done before. The Trial was incredibly, I mean, the fact that that movie came out in 1962, I can't think of too many like balls to the wall absurdist satire movies like that from that far back. He was really innovating as far as that went. I mean, this movie, maybe his most innovative movie, just the idea of just having everything be shot on the cameras at the party and everything. Every bit of footage you see is like from a different camera. No one was doing that shit at this time. Like you said, it took decades for other people to catch up, but he was there just doing it because he's just like this. And, nearly all of his movies, there's something in there. Touch of Evil, like not even necessarily in terms of the filmmaking, although again, I believe
that opening shot is one of the.
Yeah, I was about to say that is one of the earliest tracking shots. I mean, like long tracking shots. He fucking did that shit. And also just the idea, I remember watching that movie for the first time and being like, in 1958, to make a movie that tackles police corruption this head on was unfucking heard of. I mean, it would take decades for more movies like that to come out,
You have Touch of Evil. You have that opening we talked about. That you cannot have Altman's The Player opening without the Touch of Evil opening. And you cannot have Altman's The Player without the fucking studio, which I fucking love. But this is the thing is, it's today. Orson Welles is still in, we still have this through line of like, yeah, what he did was.
I mean, obviously, and that's the thing too. I'll never forget. It stuck with me for so many years. The quote from this documentary that just stuck with me and haunted me the most was when they say, Orson turned to me once and said, Citizen Kane is the greatest curse of my life. For the rest of my life, whatever I do will be compared to that movie. I can't get rid of it. And that just stuck with me because I'm like, you'd think that making like the greatest movie of all time that tops every list every year would be the highlight of that's what every filmmaker wants. He got it and it was his fucking curse and he couldn't. I was like, that's just so haunting in such a powerful way.
I mean, it's a cautionary tale for people who think that is the end all be all. Like, you want to be a Tarantino, you want to make like a Reservoir Dogs or whatever, or Pulp Fiction on your second try. You want to be an Orson Welles, you want to be a Fincher, like you want to do all these things. But you got to realize, hey, there is a line where you have to start learning. And like, if you are, like this is not the best, because if they say it's the best thing of all time, like he said, where the fuck can you go from that?
Yeah, on your first try.
That's the issue. If you do it on purpose, I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think I'm going to bring this back to everyone. I don't think Hunter S. Thompson did it on purpose, and I don't think Sam's pick, O'Brien, did not become the only girl in the orchestra on purpose. She didn't set out to do that, like necessarily. She wasn't like, this is going to be my legacy. She just did it. And that's what all these people did. They just.
Very true. That's a definite through line for all three picks. But
I need to admit something that I've been holding in for the last little bit. So
wait, those aren't real glasses.
Well, if my bit had worked, I would have had a prosthetic nose on this whole time, and I would have removed.
I was telling Jackson about that earlier. I said, Jackson, if you had any bit, it would just be to take off the prosthetic nose.
Yep.
Go ahead.
This was my first exposure to Orson Welles when I first saw this documentary in 2018. I had not seen anything he had done, didn't know anything about him, and I didn't particularly like who he was as a person from watching it. And when watching the movie after seeing the documentary, I really enjoyed the movie, and then it took until pandemic for Matt and I to watch Citizen Kane together, and my mind was just exploded. And so being able to go back and watch this from a different perspective, having seen a couple of his movies and really enjoying The Chimes of Midnight and whatnot, I understood so much more. And it was a really cool way to look at him in a different light. And that's where initially when I first saw it, I laughed my ass off every time they called him fat. And every time they called him fat this time, I was so sad because like he just didn't need that kind of bullying. And they call him fat so much in this
Well, he's a
documentary.
nice dude. You don't see him like berating other people that often, at least on footage. It's very
They caught a little bit of it. They caught a little bit of
Except
it
for
here.
Bogdanovich.
okay, yeah, but okay. So I want to say this: Orson Welles, sure, whatever. James Cameron had
Thank
his
you.
whole had his whole crew put the worst shit he said on the fucking t-shirt, and apparently, if you had a dumb idea, he'd put a bone on your neck for the whole day.
Yeah, James Cameron's a piece of shit, just for the record. But
Yes. So I just want to be like, okay, there's
he literally
Cameron.
almost killed.
I revere him. Orson Welles wasn't that bad.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't like James Cameron, who almost killed his crew during the Abyss, who gave his entire crew pneumonia on Titanic, who,
Glad we can bring this up because I love James Cameron, by the way. I'm not
I love his movies. I don't like him, for the record.
I would work under him any day. If he said, hey, come work on my set as a PA, I would do it, even if it meant abuse.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give a shit. But that's just me.
I mean, most people would say the same. But
I'd be here for it. But also, that's what separates the talent from the non-talent, right?
I guess so. But
willing to be shit on by James Cameron.
But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, but again, like you said, Sam. Yeah, it breaks my heart when you see things. People make jokes about that all the time, like that's his whole legacy, and it's just like. And I do, think I had a whole point I was going to make. Damn it. But yeah, no, I thought it was a very good portrait of him. I thought, again, his friendship with Peter Bogdanovich has always been so fascinating to me. And just that was honestly one of the most heartbreaking parts of the whole thing, watching it the first time and this time. And, again, it's like, I hate that he did it, but it's like I also feel bad that, that was even a thing. Like, I understand why he felt so shitty. Like, just because like his protege has completely outshined him,
Okay, so does anybody else get this from the movie where he was like, yeah, I was doing a Jerry Lewis impression the whole time? And that's what Orson told him to do?
Mm-hmm.
Did we not get that Orson was like still at that point, still being a dick? Obviously got worse. Still be kind of a dick by being like, play yourself, but do a Jerry Lewis impression. Because Jerry Lewis always played the top banana, He was always the joke. So, hey, play the joke version of yourself. It's kind of a fucked up direction, in my opinion.
I mean, I think at that point it had.
He wasn't saying that. He just said, do a Jerry Lewis impression.
I think he was more just thinking like this whole thing is kind of elevated satirical already. Like he's got all the film critics there arguing with each other like a bunch of pretentious idiots. It's like I think the whole thing is kind of like an elevated, I think later on, obviously,
how elevated is it though? Like how much did he really know what he was doing?
At that point, I don't think
people got offended, but did he know he was offending them?
At that point, I don't think so. Obviously, later on, when he's got the obvious Sybil Shepherd parody in there, that's when it's very apparent. Like, okay,
and that's my thing is did he know he was doing that the whole time and just was like, I'm gonna wait until people catch on, or nobody's gonna catch on because I'm a genius,
I feel like if you're award, he had the whole.
I don't know.
I bet he wrote in the notes for that due to speak, like which has no relation to Orson himself during the Lifetime Achievement thing when they're introducing his movie.
Oh, that clearly was a joke. But the thing is, apparently Hollywood knew about it, which was the problem. Because I'm like, okay, if Hollywood knows about it, was Orson trying to cause, ads or shit, like people being interested in it? Or is this just him, like, literally not knowing what's going on? And of course, they're just reporting on it. Like, because we knew Hunter S. Thompson was in on the bit. I'm curious if Orson was in on the bit on this one.
Yeah, parts of it, I think so. But, again, yeah, and that's something that I do think, obviously, for him to have the beef with Bogdanovich later on was one thing, but do it on the set like that definitely wasn't cool. But in front of everybody. But I that has always been something that's fascinated me, and that also haunted me. The fact that he called him and low key kind of tried to apologize, and then he died a week later. He said like, "Yeah, I mean, you just think about all the things that you shouldn't have done," and then he died like a week after that. And actually, here's an interesting thing about him. I don't know if either of you knew this. He died literally just a few hours after he did an interview on the Merv Griffin show, where you can watch it. You can watch it on YouTube.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And in that, he literally just like 2 or 3 hours after he did that interview, he died. So, and in that interview,
you can kind of see it.
Well, not only that, but like, I don't know, to me, the difference between him and somebody like James Cameron or these other or someone like John Landis or these other like dictator directors is like, well, first of all, he didn't kill anybody like John Landis did, but also just the difference is
he didn't dive to the Titanic.
Those guys, yes, but those guys seem to never have any remorse for what they did. They always defended their actions. But Orson, to me, he knew what he was doing was fucked up, and I think he felt bad about it. It's just he couldn't stop himself, because in that last interview, he says, one of the questions he asked is like, do you have any regrets, from all your years? And he says like, well, I guess at this age, he was 70 at the time. He's like, I guess also chilling, the character in the movie dies at 70 as well, that John Huston plays, who's the obvious. It's pretty eerie. But he says like, yes, I guess at this age, you just think about all the ways that you behaved that you shouldn't have, and just all the things that you wish you had gone back and done differently, And I'm just like, I don't know, I can see there. I'm like, there's a remorse. Like he knows what the bad things he did, he knows they were wrong.
His biggest heart, like, well, I'm going to say this real quick, and then Sam, you say the quote. I'm just going to say, like, they said this, I think, in the documentary. His biggest like Achilles heel was his heart. Like he had a big heart, and that fucked him up, because as a director, there is show business, and I don't think he was about the business. I think he was about the show. And
yeah,
and that's the thing that made me really like emotional during the documentary, was when they were talking about how Peter said that he felt like he had made so many mistakes. And that's where his quote about life is full of many mistakes, and just that honesty of like understanding that like what he did probably was not the best in the moment, but he lived with it and he understood it and he grew past it, and it just it hits hard.
And you alluded to it, Sam, and honestly, I got fucking emotional watching that part where he's on his last movie set and he's laughing and all that shit, and he's telling the story about John Huston watching it and again, I remember that scene when I saw it the first time back in 2018, but knowing now so much about him, his career, his life, having seen all his movies, being such a big fan, that shit hit me like a truck. I was like, oh my God, like I'm so glad they captured that, because that was just whatever he may have been going through. And somewhere in him, that love of just like that love for life and that love for movies never really left him. No matter how much the industry tried to suck it out of him, it was still there, and it just couldn't be extinguished. I mean, if you're that good at it, if you're that devoted to it, if you're that much of a genius at it, it can't leave you. It's going to stay with you no matter how much the industry beats the shit out of you. I also just have to say about the movie, I just love how he got because I love how he used the movie as an opportunity to like take digs at some of his enemies, like the very obvious Pauline Kael character. I just love watching this. That was very satisfying for me. I was just like, yeah, fuck her. I just want to take this moment to publicly say that Pauline Kael is a pretentious bully, and the fact that anyone takes her seriously just mystifies me. But yeah, no, I don't care who comes.
Add somebody else to our list. We got Alan Cumming and Pauline Kael.
I don't give a fuck. Pauline Kael can go fuck herself, and everybody who takes her seriously can suck a dick. But
there we go. We're making
bullshit ass, because she, for the audience,
tag Pauline Kael and Alan Cumming in this. I'm going to send Alan Cumming a Twitter fucking notification just to fuck with him.
Oh, that would be legendary if you did.
Hey, you were great in our podcast. It's surprising to see you're a pop-up.
And if he responds, say, that wasn't a proper sentence, sir.
Bitch. I am going to come for his ass. I am going to come for his ass.
Come for Cummings. There you go.
I'm going to come in his ass, too, if he'll let me.
Bust into his ass like he busted into the White House.
And just like Orson busted in Peter Bogdanovich's. Bogdanovich's britches. Sorry, I didn't finish that sentence.
I don't know where to go from that.
Are you circumcised?
No comment.
Wait to find out, because you will know by the end of season 2 whether or not the circumcision is, in fact, passed down from my ancestor, Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
I support those who are and who are not, but I will not confirm myself. I'm not anti-circumcision.
It's okay. I'll find out one way or another.
That's it. I'm fucking done.
Okay. Fuck you.
I can't believe this shit.
Fuck you.
All right. Can I get a PA
Fuck
in here?
you.
Can I get a fucking PA
Get up
or something?
and go. There's no PA.
God damn.
What are you, an idiot?
You fucking asshole. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, okay?
Who do you think you are?
Fucking asking people
What the
that
fuck,
shit.
you know?
Fucking fat version of Peter Griffin,
Okay,
motherfucker. What a
yeah.
fucking
Fuck
tool
you.
bag, all right? Like,
Fuck
god
you.
damn. Ugh. Oh. I'm out of here. Fuck this shit.
You're in your own house, dumbass.
Right. Brandy's actually not bad, Jackson, by the way. I know you're not a drinker.
I know what it tastes
Saying
like.
brandy
Really
doesn't
don't
taste like
Brandy is like the classy drink. That's like,
yes, it tastes
whenever
like
I picture brandy, I'm like Burt Reynolds or somebody with a glass, just like, yes, brandy and cigars.
Piece of
And,
shit,
I'm a
Burt
cool
Reynolds.
guy. Say what?
Piece of shit, Burt Reynolds making fun of Peter.
Yeah. He was making fun of him, that son of a bitch. Yeah, he was.
What show is Burt Reynolds hosting, though? I did not understand that aspect.
I thought it looked like he was guest hosting, like the
Hollywood
Tonight
Squares
or something.
I don't know.
The Floor with Brian O'Halloran.
I stopped watching after he got off.
Brian O'Halloran is
Hey, you
off
know
the
what?
floor, so who cares?
You know what
now?
the only episode left was after that? There was one episode in the finale. Homeboy was on it for the whole season.
Wow.
So like that's what it was like. I was like, oh, it's the finale already.
He almost made it.
But he won a lot of money. He did. He walked away with all the money that he won.
made it pretty far.
Yeah, they didn't like when he like won that amount of money. He did not just like leave with none of it. He left with all of it. So
pretty cool.
Crazy. Yeah.
But I will say it is nearly time for this episode to be over. And Sam has a little tune to play for us here to take us out.
Anything to say about the podcast this week, Jackson, and
wait.
Our subscribers to do, and where you think they should go,
all right, go for it.
And what they should do.
I think
the episode comes out.
I think that all you fine folks out there like and subscribe to our podcast. I think you should comment and let us know if you were 3 for 3 and vote in the poll what your favorite pick was. I think that
do not vote for the Water Wars.
Yeah. And I want you all to just remember that we appreciate you. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out in all the places. And just remember the lessons that we learned. If you're a Gonzo, keep fighting the good fight. If you're a legendary director who needs to finance his film, don't go to the Shah of Iran. That's a bad idea. And if you're the only girl in the orchestra, that makes you the baddest bitch in the orchestra and in general. These are the lessons we've learned this week on 3 for 3. That and Alan Cumming can go fuck himself. There you have it.
That's 3 for 3, boys.
We put 3. I think we are 3 for 3 this week too.
We definitely are.
100%.
Absolutely.
Oh, look, actually, my cigarette is now like Hunter S. Thompson's in here in Las Vegas.
There you go.
Now I got tobacco.
I would just like to say before we close out, peace out, everybody.
What are all these goddamn animals? And do you want to fuck?
They thought it was the fucking time zone.